The Bible does not encompass all religious texts from antiquity. Numerous other religious texts exist, offering diverse perspectives and historical insights. These texts provide additional context for understanding religious history and cultural evolution. The Bible was not compiled as a single, unified text, but formed gradually over many centuries. The process of canonization and compilation spanned from the early Christian era through the Middle Ages. Various texts and traditions contributed to the final form of the Bible as we know it today. Historical church councils convened to determine which books would be included in the biblical canon. Debates centered on the authenticity, authorship, and theological consistency of various texts. Decisions made at these councils shaped the accepted biblical texts and theological doctrines. Text comparison involves analyzing passages from canonical books alongside non-canonical texts. Non-canonical texts, such as the Book of Enoch and the Gospel of Thomas, provide comparative material. The comparison highlights differences and similarities in themes, narratives, and theological concepts. The Book of Enoch explores themes of fallen angels and forbidden heavenly secrets. The narrative details the descent of watchers and their interactions with humanity. The Book of Enoch has exerted considerable influence on subsequent biblical texts and theological concepts. The Book of Jude contains a direct quote from the Book of Enoch. Jude 1:14-15 quotes Enoch 1:9, referencing Enoch's prophecy. This raises the question of why Jude is canonical while Enoch is not. The Gospel of Thomas presents sayings attributed to Jesus, distinct from the canonical Gospels. These sayings often offer unique interpretations and perspectives on spiritual teachings. The content of the Gospel of Thomas is sometimes mysterious and open to diverse understandings. Apostolic authorship is a key criterion for determining canonicity. Consistency with established doctrine is essential for canonical acceptance. Widespread acceptance within the early church community was a vital factor in determining canonicity. Mystical elements in excluded texts often contain symbolic visualizations that deviate from conventional narratives. These texts may include abstract representations of reality, featuring nonlinear time and unconventional causality. The exclusion of such texts may stem from their ambiguous nature and potential for misinterpretation within a standardized framework. Canonical texts represent doctrines and principles accepted as authoritative within a specific tradition. Non-canonical texts present alternative perspectives, interpretations, or historical accounts that diverge from established doctrines. Doctrinal conflicts arise from fundamental disagreements between canonical and non-canonical interpretations. The institutional church historically played a significant role in shaping the biblical canon. Ecclesiastical authorities influenced which texts were included and excluded from the official scriptures. This process potentially led to the suppression of alternative viewpoints or uncomfortable truths. The phrase "history is written by the victors" highlights the power dynamics in historical narratives. Canon formation is influenced by those who hold power, shaping which perspectives are remembered and valued. Understanding historical narratives requires critical analysis of the sources and their potential biases. Sacred truth is symbolized by an illuminated ancient manuscript, radiating a soft, golden light. Control within religious institutions is represented by a heavy, ornate iron gate, casting long shadows. The tension between sacred truth and control is visually depicted through contrasting light and shadow, symbolizing the conflict. Forbidden books can be categorized by origin: human creation versus divine inspiration. Human-created forbidden books often contain secular knowledge, political dissent, or subversive ideologies. Divinely inspired forbidden books often claim supernatural origins, religious revelations, or mystical insights. Certain excluded texts carry a profound weight of historical and spiritual significance. This weight symbolizes the immense influence and potential impact these texts once held. Visual metaphors are used to convey the gravity and importance of these texts. Fear can lead to the exclusion of texts, limiting understanding and growth. Discernment, guided by prayer, enables thoughtful engagement with challenging texts. Choosing discernment over fear fosters informed perspectives and spiritual maturity. Truth-seeking involves active exploration and investigation across diverse fields of knowledge. Critical thinking and questioning are essential components of the truth-seeking process. The pursuit of truth often leads to new discoveries and a deeper understanding of the world. The Bible, like a puzzle, presents a narrative with potential gaps in understanding. Missing pieces in the biblical narrative can represent incomplete knowledge or unanswered questions. Filling these gaps through study and interpretation can lead to a more complete and nuanced understanding. Symbolic absence can convey deeper meaning than explicit presence. The unsaid and unseen can evoke powerful emotional and intellectual responses. Deliberate omissions highlight the significance of what remains. Early Christians engaged with a variety of texts, some of which were later excluded from the biblical canon. These texts were subject to intense discussion and debate within early Christian communities. The selection process for canonical texts involved complex historical and theological considerations. Early church fathers occasionally quoted texts now considered non-canonical. These quotations provide insight into the diverse range of texts circulating in early Christianity. The use of these texts does not necessarily imply endorsement of their theological content. Forbidden labels are symbolically represented to denote restricted access to certain texts. Symbolic representation of forbidden labels visually communicates the restricted nature of the content. The labeling of texts as forbidden serves as a symbolic barrier to accessing specific information. The exclusion of certain books from the biblical canon remains shrouded in mystery. Visual metaphors can represent the sense of mystery surrounding these excluded texts. The selection process and criteria for inclusion are not always fully transparent. The hidden side of Scripture reveals the existence of texts excluded from canonical versions. These excluded texts offer alternative perspectives and narratives, enriching scriptural understanding. Visualizing these texts unveils a broader, more complex tapestry of religious history and thought. An empty pulpit symbolizes topics often avoided by pastors. The absence of a speaker represents unaddressed issues within the community. This visual metaphor underscores the silence surrounding sensitive or controversial subjects. Archaeological digs unearth ancient texts preserved for centuries. Careful excavation techniques are employed to reveal fragile, buried artifacts. The recovered texts provide insights into past civilizations and their knowledge. Initial perceptions of the Bible can be reshaped through new information. Visual effects can illustrate how perspectives on biblical narratives evolve. Understanding different interpretations can lead to a more nuanced view of the Bible. The question, who decided what books belonged in the Bible, is presented. The question prompts an exploration of the historical process of canonization. Understanding canonization involves examining the roles of councils, scholars, and traditions. The formation of canons involves processes of debate and discussion. Selection and exclusion are inherent aspects of canon formation. Censorship can play a role in shaping what is considered canonical. The Book of Enoch is an example of a text excluded from the canonical Bible. The Gospel of Thomas represents another non-canonical text. The Book of Jubilees and the Apocalypse of Peter are additional examples of excluded books. Early believers considered certain texts as sacred scripture. These texts were foundational to the development of early Christian doctrine and practice. The careful reading and interpretation of these texts shaped the early Christian community's identity and beliefs. The Book of Jubilees retells narratives from Genesis, offering a unique perspective on creation and early human history. Key themes in Jubilees include the importance of observing specific time periods and festivals, as outlined in its version of Exodus. The Book of Jubilees provides an expanded narrative context for events described in Genesis and Exodus. The Apocalypse of Peter presents vivid visions of heaven and hell. These visions explore themes of divine judgment and the consequences of earthly actions. The narrative contrasts the eternal bliss of the righteous with the eternal suffering of the wicked. The Gospel of Thomas contains various sayings attributed to Jesus. These sayings offer insights into the teachings and philosophy of Jesus. The sayings are presented as direct quotes, offering a unique perspective on Jesus' words. Mysterious sayings can be visually represented as cryptic symbols, hinting at hidden meanings. The potentially dangerous nature of some sayings is symbolized through sharp, fragmented visual elements. Visual metaphors effectively convey the intangible essence and impact of enigmatic proverbs. Historical church councils established criteria for canonization. These councils formalized the process of recognizing individuals as saints. The criteria ensured a rigorous evaluation of a candidate's life and virtues. Mystical texts contain symbolic content that can be visually represented. Visualization of mystical texts involves translating abstract concepts into tangible forms. Symbolic representations provide a visual interpretation of the hidden meanings within excluded texts. Official doctrine serves as a framework to define and categorize texts within a specific system of thought or belief. This framework inherently establishes criteria for inclusion and exclusion, determining which texts are considered authoritative or valid. Texts that do not align with the established doctrine are often excluded, marginalized, or deemed heretical within that system. Uncomfortable truths are often concealed or excluded from mainstream narratives. These suppressed realities can be represented symbolically through fragmented or incomplete imagery. The act of revealing uncomfortable truths involves confronting obscured and often painful aspects of reality. Forbidden books are human creations, reflecting societal values and control. Examples of forbidden books reveal diverse reasons for their suppression throughout history. These books, regardless of content, are tangible examples of human attempts to restrict knowledge. Divine inspiration can be symbolically represented through visual metaphors. Visual metaphors effectively convey the intangible feeling of divine inspiration. Symbolic representation avoids literal interpretations, focusing on emotional and conceptual resonance. Discernment involves careful and thoughtful analysis of information. Prayer provides spiritual guidance and clarity during the discernment process. Symbolic actions, such as reading and praying, enhance understanding and decision-making. The video's message resonates with diverse individuals seeking truth. Truth seekers actively engage with and share the video's core insights. The video's message empowers viewers to discover and embrace newfound knowledge. Embark on a visual journey into the profound mysteries of the Bible. Visual effects are used to represent the exploration of complex biblical concepts. The journey aims to uncover hidden meanings and deeper understandings within biblical narratives. Understanding is enhanced when missing information is incorporated. Excluded texts can be visualized as the missing puzzle piece needed for comprehensive understanding. The integration of previously excluded texts completes the overall understanding, revealing a cohesive picture. Early Christian communities shared and studied religious texts. These texts formed the basis of early Christian doctrine and practice. Community readings fostered a shared understanding and strengthened faith. Lost knowledge can be symbolically represented through excluded texts. Excluded texts represent a repository of knowledge that has been deliberately or inadvertently suppressed. Symbolic representation of lost knowledge evokes a sense of irretrievable information and forgotten perspectives. Reconsidering the canon involves critically reevaluating established literary and artistic works. The act of reconsideration opens up possibilities for diverse voices and perspectives within the canon. This process ensures the canon remains relevant and representative of evolving cultural values. The choice to engage with or avoid excluded texts is a matter of individual discretion. Personal values and beliefs significantly influence one's decision regarding potentially controversial material. Respect for individual autonomy dictates that each person has the right to decide what they read. The video concludes, prompting viewers to ponder the presented information. A question mark encourages further exploration and deeper understanding of the subject matter. The concluding question mark serves as an invitation for continued learning and reflection.